How are they controlling me?
Because they control the creation of money.
Bitcoin does not have privacy. Central banks are not going to want to buy Bitcoin.
I think there's a very strong possibility that the American empire will collapse in the next 5 to 10 years.
Iran just launched a Bitcoin-backed insurance platform for ships crossing the Strait of Hormuz. And late last week, the Clarity Act advanced and is on track to be signed into law this summer. The world is moving fast, and if you're paying attention, right now you already feel it. The money is being weaponized. The surveillance infrastructure is going up rapidly. The empire is running on borrowed time. You can see the writing on the wall. The question is, what do you actually do about it? Today, we look at two of the most watched voices on the internet to show you the fork in the road that almost nobody has eyes to see. Both of them see the trap. Neither sees the door. This is Truth Block. I'm Hurley. Let's mine truth. Before we dive in, I want to let you know that we're building something really exciting at Simply Bitcoin that you won't want to miss. Scan the QR code below or visit news.simplybitcoin.com/launch to learn more and be one of the first to see what's coming. Professor Jiang is a Chinese-Canadian educator with a BA in English Lit from Yale. But oddly enough, Professor Jiang isn't actually a professor. He teaches at a private high school in Beijing. Jiang got internet famous and went viral for predicting Trump's second term, and more recently the Iran war. And his recent interview on Diary of a CEO has over 10 million views. He's also a self-proclaimed conspiracy theorist who operates within a Gnostic spiritual framework, even claiming an intention to start his own religion. And as we covered in a previous episode, he has some truly terrible takes on Bitcoin.
Where are the blockchain servers located?
But when Jiang talks about the monetary system and the surveillance state, he lays out loud what millions of people are already thinking and seeing. Let's start where he starts, the petrodollar.
The United States have invaded Iran because it has no choice in the matter. If it were not to invade Iran, it would lose its empire. Its empire is based purely on the US dollar, the petrodollar, which is a Ponzi scheme. If it did not invade Iran, then people would choose not to trade with it anymore. People would choose to not buy US treasuries.
Why?
For the longest time, this system worked fine. But then in February 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine.
Yeah.
Okay. That was not the issue. The issue was the American response. The American response was to sanction Russia and remove Russia from the SWIFT global payment system. It also ordered Europeans to freeze over $200 billion in Russian assets. And this is a problem because the very basis for having the US dollar as the global reserve currency is that it would remain politically neutral. The Americans guaranteed seamless, politically neutral international exchange.
He's right. The petrodollar is a Ponzi scheme. It requires ever-expanding participation to survive. And when America froze Russia's reserves in 2022, the foundational promise of political neutrality died. Every nation on Earth learned a lesson that day. If you hold someone else's money, you hold it on their terms. And we're watching it play out in real time. Over the weekend, Iran launched Hormuz Safe, a Bitcoin-backed insurance platform for ships crossing the Strait of Hormuz. If you want to transit the strait, Iran will insure your cargo with cryptographically verified coverage and instant settlement. Iran's Ministry of Economy is projecting $10 billion in revenue from it. And of course, payments are settled in Bitcoin. So a sanctioned nation under wartime conditions chose the one money that doesn't need anyone's permission to work. That's game theory. The exact kind of game theory Jiang claims to practice, but never applies it to Bitcoin. In the next clip, he goes even further. Living in China, he describes from firsthand experience the surveillance system the rest of the world is being marched toward right now.
So the average person, it means two things. It means digital ID and digital currency.
Okay.
So what that will allow is for the government to basically monitor everything you do online and control all financial transactions. It can basically program your bank account. So like you can't buy cigarettes or you can't buy drugs. And this will allow the government to basically categorize everyone and put everyone into a certain database to monitor that person. Once you're able to categorize everyone, you are able to use AI to predict their behavior.
Isn't this what goes on in some parts of the world?
This is what goes on in China. And that's how I know about this.
How does it work in China?
Well, in China, we all have digital ID. If you want to access anything in China, you need your digital ID. So if you want to open a bank account, you have to use a digital ID. If you want to use any e-payments, you have to use digital ID. If you want to use a phone, you have to use digital ID. Okay, so everyone's part of this national database, and then what this allows government to do is basically monitor everything you do, because basically, depending on how you buy things, I can then extrapolate to figure out your behavior. And then I can figure out your thinking, right? And then I can create incentives in order to guide and control your behavior.
So in China, can they see everything that you do?
Yes, they can.
Messages you send,
Everything.
payments you make.
Everything. Everything you do online is being recorded and it's being inputted into the database to figure out who you are, what you want, and how to control you. And they think this is progress, by the way. This is progress because I'm making you a better person, right? I'm helping you achieve your dream. I'm helping you lose weight. I'm helping you avoid drugs. I'm helping you work harder.
Digital ID, digital currency, behavioral prediction, behavioral control. It's not coming. It's all here. China built it, and governments everywhere are following. Canada is trying to mandate government spyware and backdoors into every telecom and internet provider in the country. As Ledn put it, the push for this is growing from many, many places. This is clearly the trend, and AI is an accelerant. It'll be what turns the database into a control system in practice. It's what closes the loop between watching what you do and deciding what you're allowed to do next. That's why every government racing toward digital currency is also racing towards AI integration. They're not separate projects. So either we walk into programmable state-controlled money, or we choose the only alternative that exists. Now, you might have heard that the Clarity Act includes anti-CBDC provisions. That sounds great on paper, but let's not kid ourselves about what's really happening here. The Clarity Act isn't about protecting you from the surveillance state. It's about extending dollar dominance. Stablecoins are US dollar instruments on digital rails. They expand the reach of the dollar into every corner of the global economy. Some would argue they're a Trojan horse toward the very thing the bill claims to prevent. I mean, when has the government ever passed a law that genuinely limits its own power? The anti-CBDC language in the bill might delay the worst version of programmable money, but it doesn't eliminate the threat. Only one thing does that. And unfortunately for Jiang and his audience, he thinks that one thing is a CIA operation. Last month on Jack Neal's podcast, Jiang laid out his Bitcoin CIA thesis.
So then you have to ask yourself three questions. First of all, is who would have the technology and the expertise to create something like the blockchain? Second of all, you have to ask who would benefit from this blockchain creation? And the third question you want to ask is, why would they keep it secret? Okay, and when you do game theory analysis, you look at all possibilities, you end up with a deep state, the American deep state. You end up with the CIA.
I find it funny that you can very easily answer all three of those questions through game theory analysis without the CIA ever entering the picture. Who had the capacity? The cypherpunk movement did, which consisted of decades of cryptographers working toward digital cash. Hal Finney, Wei Dai, Adam Back. The white paper cites their work. Who benefits? Everyone who wants to transact without permission from a central authority. Every person under sanctions, under authoritarian rule, under a monetary system debasing their savings. And why give it away? Well, the same reason Linux was given away. The same reason the core protocols that run the internet were given away. Some things are more valuable as public infrastructure than proprietary products. And that brings us to Ray Dalio, founder of the world's largest hedge fund. Dalio has been a broken record in the last few years, saying the world order has broken down. He was recently on the All In podcast and said the question everyone should be asking is what money is safe?
Okay, so Bitcoin does not have privacy. Any transactions can be monitored and then indirectly perhaps controlled. Central banks are not going to want to buy Bitcoin and being able to hold it. So it's not just individuals, it's institutions and so on, but most, and central banks, so that there are attributes of that. And it's a relatively small market that's a relatively controllable market. I think a lot of attention has been given to Bitcoin, but as a money, it's small in relationship to gold. And so, those are the dynamics. There is only one gold.
Dalio says central banks won't hold Bitcoin because transactions can be monitored. Think about what he's actually saying. Central banks want money they can use without anyone seeing what they're doing. That's not an argument against Bitcoin. That's an argument against central banks. The whole reason we're in this mess is because people who control the money have been operating behind closed curtains for a century. You can audit every Bitcoin in existence. Can you do that with gold? No one truly knows how much gold governments actually hold. That opacity is exactly how gold failed as money. It trends towards centralization and is incredibly cumbersome and expensive to verify. And the fact that nobody knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is actually the single greatest proof that Bitcoin can be used privately. The creator of the largest monetary network in history has remained pseudo-anonymous for 17 years, sitting on over $100 billion. That's privacy on Bitcoin. The open ledger means nobody can secretly inflate the supply or print money in the dark. It's accountability at the base layer. Privacy gets built on higher layers, the same way your internet connection is open but your messages can be encrypted. So Dalio says there's only one gold. Well, Ray, there's only one Bitcoin too. And unlike gold, you can send it across borders in minutes and verify the entire supply in seconds. Next, Jiang takes the Platos cave allegory and applies it to the financial system. He maps each layer of control with precision.
In the first layer, you need a power, a force, to put people in chains, right? And this is what we call the military-industrial complex of America, as well as the empire. So going back to this example, it's the layer that puts the people into change. But now the second step is you need people to create the reality, to direct people's attention, to create the game. These people are the financial elite, the Bank of International Settlements. These people are the ones who set the exchange currency rates. Mm-hmm. And they also allow for seamless financial transactions, the SWIFT system, basically. Then Wall Street and the City of London were the financiers. And then you have the Federal Reserve System. Because the Federal Reserve are the people who print money. Now, once you create the rules of the game, you need to create the game itself, which is the global economy. And obviously, this is a pretty vast system that encompasses everything, okay? Now you have to explain to people how the global economy works. And you cannot tell people, oh, really, there are these secret people working behind the scenes that are projecting shadows onto a wall. So what you do is you create multilateral organizations that pretend to control the global economy. And they are the World Bank, the United Nations, WTO. You make people believe that this is all being controlled impartially for our benefit. Now, you have to convince people that this system is legitimate, that when you're actually seeing the shadows on the wall, they're real. And that's why you need the media. That's why you need culture, such as Hollywood, movies, basically. And you need education, school system, okay? These are the people who are all prisoners, who have become leaders of the prisoners, and who are helping them understand the shadows on the wall.
So am I in the media?
Yes, you are.
Am I?
Yes.
So what am I doing? Am I one of the people in the fire controlling the narrative? Is that what?
Yes, yes.
But I'm not owned by anybody.
That's what you think.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Who am I owned by?
Ultimately, it's the people who control the fire that are in charge, right? So ultimately, it's these people, the second layer,
Okay.
the game masters, the financial elite that control everything.
And the financial elite, again, are like the World Bank, you said.
No. The financial elite are these private bankers.
Okay, so are the private bankers controlling me? Because you said I was in the media.
Do you want to make money?
Yeah.
Then they're controlling you.
Okay.
Right?
How are they controlling me?
Because they control the creation of money.
The Bank of International Settlements, the Federal Reserve, Wall Street, the media, culture, education, all sustaining a monetary reality most people never question. And Stephen Bartlett asks the obvious question: how are they controlling me? Simple answer: the creation of money. What Jiang has described without knowing it is the most complete case for Bitcoin you will ever hear from anyone outside the Bitcoin world. The shadows only work to enslave as long as the slaves use their money. The moment an alternative exists that no institution controls, no bank can freeze, and no government can program, the shadows lose their grip. That exit is Bitcoin. And the man who just described the cave can't see it because he already decided it was built by the CIA. Now, Jiang also puts an incredibly aggressive timeline on the collapse of the US empire.
Ray Dalio talks about the cycles through history and how sort of predictable they are and how frequent they are. Is there a frequency to the rise and fall of these, I guess, perceived realities or empires, as he calls it?
Yeah, so they say empires last around 200 years. And so we are now in the twilight of the American empire. And what we know is that when empires decline, it's always for the same reasons. And it's always because of too much debt, too much corruption, too much inequality. And we're seeing that in America today. And the other thing that we know is you can't actually stop the decline of empires. So Oswald Spengler, who is a German theoretician, he argues that we are human beings and we have natural life cycles because we're organisms. Well, societies are the same way, where empires, they will be born, they'll rise, they'll die. And it's a good thing because that's what allows for constant human innovation.
Do you think that will happen in my lifetime? I'm 30 years old, 33 years old.
It may happen in the next 5 to 10 years. We are seeing...
Do you think that's going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years?
I think there's a very strong possibility that the American empire will collapse in the next 5 to 10 years because it is overstretched, it's in too much debt, and it is really angering the entire world. It's basically unifying the entire world against it right now.
The direction is right, but his timeline is a huge stretch, especially if dollar dominance gets extended through stablecoin adoption, which is exactly what the Clarity Act is designed to do. Will the monetary system face a serious reckoning this decade? Almost certainly. The math doesn't work, and everyone who's honest knows it. But the entire US empire collapsing within 10 years? I'm not so sure about that. But the question isn't the timeline. It's what you're holding when the reckoning arrives. Dollars is the promise of an empire that can't keep its promises. Gold is the asset every government in history eventually confiscates when the moment demands it. Bitcoin is the only money ever created that no empire can freeze. No government can inflate, no central bank can program, and no executive order can confiscate. So that's the fork in the road. On one side, programmable money, digital ID, an AI-powered surveillance apparatus that turns your bank account into a behavior modification tool. That's the road most governments are building right now. On the other side, we have Bitcoin, sound money, and verifiable scarcity that is already being used by a sanctioned nation to settle real commerce at the most contested waterway on Earth. Not because they believe in freedom, but because the game theory left them no other choice. Jiang sees the chess match. Dalio sees the debt crisis. Both mapped the problem. Neither took the time to look at Bitcoin's architecture. They simply do not have the eyes to see or the ears to hear yet. But the good news is you don't need them or anyone else's faulty conclusions. You just need to seek for yourself. So did Jiang's surveillance description change how you think about digital money? What's more dangerous, a government that can see every transaction or a money that no government controls? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to smash the like button and share it with someone who sees where the world is headed but is blind to the solution staring them in the face. And subscribe to Simply Bitcoin so you don't miss what's coming next. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on Thursday.